Welcome. We are back from recess to the issues and updates. Administrator Gary Schmidt, you're up.
Thank you, Chair Smith. We are continuing issues and updates. We are now at procurement and grant procedures update. Tracy Moreland from the County Administration Office will present. Commissioners, you asked for this about 7 months ago, and we took a long time to make sure it was right. So this is an update on what you asked for. Go ahead, please, Tracy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tracy Moreland, County Administration. I'm here along with colleagues in Finance, Council, and PGA behind me there to present a new idea for helping the public in the county identify and understand our procurement, contract, and grant procedures. This is in a response to a request from you to help provide information for potential vendors and grant applicants, and also help understand the rules and ethics we are required to follow when staff reviews applications and proposals. So I'm happy today to do just a very short review of a new county webpage we created with the help of the departments I just mentioned, and shout out to Mark McBride, who's here. He's the web designer from PGA. This page is not live to the public yet, and I'm going to share my screen now so that folks watching and you all can see it. It's not live to the public yet, but it will be before the end of the year. We wanted to create one landing page for vendors, grant applicants, and the general public with a lot of information and answers to commonly searched for and questions in one convenient spot. We wanted it to be easy to understand and not a whole lot of technical language. And it's going to start off, if you want to see my scroll here. This is a placeholder for just a very short 20 or 30-second welcome video that is going to have footage of some of the services we provide and just welcome potential vendors, new vendors to the county, and thank you for wanting to do business with us, along with a message. And then also for folks who are new to the county, we may not be familiar with our processes. We wanted to provide kind of some 101 information and talk about the procurement basics and what is procurement, and that's where Mark's created these drop-down boxes that has definitions, competitive bidding and procurement, and kind of what these acronyms mean: RFQ, RFP, invitation to bid, and then really helps define those. And we know that an invitation, an RFQ is for specific services, and usually the minimum qualifying criteria, the vendor that has the lowest bid and meets that criteria will usually be selected. And for an RFP, a request for proposal, those are a little more substantive as far as the cost isn't just looked at, but also the financial health of a company, their ability to do the project, their history of success, and their experience with similar projects. And these are often unique county projects. The courthouse might be a good example. And those are all clearly defined in the solicitation package. And so when people get familiar with these terms, then they can come down, and this is a neat feature to this page. They can look at the BidLocker website and the Oregon Buys website, and this is the county participates in Oregon Buys, and I'll click on it so you can see it's a website that houses the state of Oregon opportunities, as well as a lot of local municipalities, and the county does participate in that too. And we can type in once they set up their account and look at what we have open, and you can see there's several openings that the county has. And so if someone, this third one here says Clackamas County Taxi Services, and they can click on that. And if somebody has a transportation company or owns a fleet of vehicles and wants to do business with the county, they can look and see that Social Services and H3S wants to contract with the transportation company to provide rides to some of our clients to their appointments. And they can read all about it on here and apply this way and set up their account. And they can see that the sealed bids are going to be opened on December 14th, and at the top, they have 8 days and 17 minutes to do that. And then, so that's a really nice partner that we have. And BidLocker is the same type of a website. We have our own page, and you can see there's a lot of contact information. Vendors can go down and set up their profile with the county so we know who they are. And then we also have oftentimes the same opportunities are located here. If somebody is a vendor who does heat pump work or air conditioning, they can see that the Brooks building needs some work. They can click on that, and they better hurry, it's due in 2 days, and then they could submit their bid online. So it's really intuitive and easy. And then when people set up their account here, or potential vendors, they can say, okay, what does the county really expect of me? And they can click on, Finance has this really nice 5-step process that will help them complete their bid response and submit it successfully to the county. That's the first part of our new landing page. The second part, we realized when we were undertaking this process that a lot of different departments offer grant subrecipient opportunities. And so what we wanted to do was identify those departments, and we listed most of them here. And people had to navigate the website and go through the different department pages to try and find where all those were located. And so we wanted to have that housed in one specific spot. So again, this is a placeholder, but we're going to list all the open grant opportunities, and people can click on them depending on what they're interested in, and go and then that'll take them to the department, and it'll give the instructions on how to apply for that particular grant. So this could have the entire list, the ARPA grants, the small grants that Caroline oversees, the WEST grants, H3S grants. They could all be in one spot for folks so they don't have to travel everywhere. And then we'll have frequently asked questions, because we know that typically, especially first-time applicants, have a lot of questions, nonprofit partners and constituents. And we'll have sample applications, and then below that we'll have tips for submitting a successful grant application, because we want folks to be successful. And finally, the third part of our new landing page is ethical standards and state law, and we've linked to several documents that the county that the county utilizes when we select vendors and grant applicants. We know that the board receives questions from constituents and applicants about our selection process, and these documents are detailing what our standards are and what we must follow. And there's the state Oregon Revised Statute 244. There's the local contract review board rules, which you've all read, and then we also have our own county procurement code of ethics, and we can click on that and say, well, what does the county's code say? And so we can read all about our own code, and then the links are here to those other documents that I just mentioned. So folks can do a deep dive in that and really learn about what our standards are regarding conflict of interest, impartiality, gifts, accepting gifts, and the importance of transparency and public trust. So that's really it in a nutshell, but again, convenience, really easy to use and understand, and reassuring the public about our selection process. We're going to ask PGA to help promote this a little bit, and we're going to put a process in place for our vendors to give us feedback so that they can let us know if they like this new page, if it's working okay for them. And if you had any questions, I'm sure any of our team here who helped put this together would be pleased to answer those.
Can you go back to the,
Yeah.
I guess it's called the landing page?
Well, yeah, that's just the main page itself,
Okay,
yeah.
Go back, go to where it says those 3 blocks. One says Oregon buys.
Oh, yeah, yep.
Okay, stop. Okay. How to bid on county projects. Now, you went through it pretty fast.
I did, yeah.
Whoever was doing, I don't know. Who's doing it. So my question is, you have the Oregon Buys tab, but if you're bidding on county projects, do we use the same criteria that's in the Oregon Buys?
Oh, that might be a question for Ryan.
Because when whomever, Tracy or the presenters, clicked on that, on the county projects, Oregon Buys popped up. So am I to assume, let's say I want to apply for a grant or be a vendor, do I follow the state criteria as long as the county criteria?
It's a great question. My name's Ryan Rice. I'm the procurement manager here at the county. And we use Oregon Buys as a centralized service to publish all of our opportunities. So historically, the way things used to work here is everything was found on our website. So if you were a vendor, you had to be savvy enough to go to the website to understand what projects were even available and hope they kind of fit your criteria. So we transitioned a number of years ago to Oregon Procurement Information Network, which was shortened to ORPN. ORPN is the state-run site where every agency, every city, and the state itself, they use that site to advertise all their projects. It's a centralized service for all governmental agencies. ORPN went away and it transitioned to Oregon Buys. So it's essentially the same thing, different name, all run by the state for the state's use for all government agencies. Has 80,000, don't quote me on that, but it's a huge number of vendors that are already currently registered with Oregon Buys. It's a free site, so it's not pay to play, and it's a completely open and transparent way for us to get our stuff out there in a systematic and a simple way. So we use Oregon Buys to advertise all of our projects. Your question about do we use their criteria to judge, to score, to do all that sort of stuff? No, we use that to advertise our stuff, and within our RFPs, within our bids, within our RFQs, whatever the package is, it clearly defines what our criteria is. So there's no hiding, there's nothing to that level. It's all transparent, and the scores are clearly defined on how we'll make our selection. And one step further here, you'll see that we have 3 blocks. The first block, actually, if you go left to right in a traditional manner, how to bid on the county or on county projects, that is a finance landing page that tells you a 5-step process. Register with Oregon Buys. It's your best bet to find projects, not only with the county, but with all the agencies, with all the states, with whatever you're doing. So it's very beneficial to the vendor. Then Oregon Buys shows you how to find these projects. And then finally, the last block on the right is how you submit for these projects.
Okay.
So the bid locker, we only use Oregon Buys to advertise our items. We don't receive anything through there. We don't work with that. We just advertise. Bid locker is how we receive our submissions. And that's a third-party documented site that records timestamps and allows bids to be received. And when the time is up, they are kicked out and we don't allow them to come through. Does that answer your question?
Good. Yeah, it's very much out there. Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Well, I'll make a comment. I'm glad to see that. If you could scroll down to the very bottom of the page where it had the ethics, and that's of interest to me. Just for sake of it, can you click on the last green link, the county's own policies? Thank you.
Yep, so this is the county's procurement code of ethics.
Okay, you had that up on the screen earlier. Are those 5 links there? Those are all hot links, right? Hyperlinks?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I'll look at those later then. Thank you.
Do commissioners have access to this? Not yet?
Not yet, but I can provide you with the link of it's kind of an internal site, so I can supply you with the link and you can look at all the documents. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions, commissioners? I think this is something this board has been wanting. When do you expect this to go live?
Before the end of the year, and we'll keep working on it for the
Most of
next.
the bugs worked out as can be expected until it goes live, and then, ooh, what happens?
Yeah.
That's the way it always works, right? I know, I'm sure
hope
this will
not.
be fine because it's actually quite simple. And the beauty of it, 3 links and explains how to do it. And any other further comments? Seeing none. Gary, you have any questions or comments?
No, I want to thank the staff for their diligent work on this. You have asked for this, commissioners, and I'm very pleased with the results, and we'll let you know when it goes live by the end of this month. Thank you. That was it, just an update for you. Thank you, Tracy and Ryan
Thank you.
and team.
Thank you very much. That's a lot of good work. We appreciate it a lot, Tracy, and all the rest who have been working on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Commissioners, Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Design Review Committee, staffed by Planning and Zoning Division of Department of Transportation and Development, currently has one opening on their commission due to a member resignation. Through a recruitment process, one application was received and is recommended for appointment. That appointment is candidate Matthew Jones to a first term.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved to approve to the Design Review Board Matthew Jones, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Tony, what's next?
The Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee has one vacancy for a public representative. Through a recruitment process, one application was received. That recommendation is Becky Wilkinson to a first term.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, just, Tony, I think there were a lot of applications that were received. I looked at a list, and there were like maybe 10 or so, but he's shaking his head yes, just to correct the record.
Apologies, Commissioner, you're correct. There were 12 applications received.
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motion, Commissioners.
I move we appoint Becky Wilkinson to the Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee.
Second.
Commissioner Schrader has moved we appoint Becky Wilkinson to the Supportive Housing Services Oversight Committee. Commissioner Schull has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Schull?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Chair Smith?
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, your business meeting for this Thursday, December 8th, is at 6 PM. It's an evening meeting. You have a previously approved land use issue, which is the short-term rentals, the ZDO component of that, and then all the consent agenda items you approved earlier today, as well as several other discussion items, Commissioners, you discussed earlier today in executive session. So you will have a full agenda for this Thursday. It's an evening business meeting. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know, and staff is happy to answer it for you before Thursday night. The final item today, Chair, is Commissioner Communications.
Thank you, Gary. Commissioner Communications, who wants to speak first? Commissioner Schull.
I'd be happy to. I'd like to tell you briefly about my trip to Roseburg last Thursday and Friday for the Association of Oregon and California Counties. I'm going to give you a hard copy of the update on the litigation. That's 4 different cases that the association's got going on, and also a copy of the association's accomplishments for 2022. And I want to share with you one comment I made during the portion of the meeting when the Bureau of Land Management spoke to us about the harvest having to do with the timber that was damaged in the 2020 fires. Now, BLM has only harvested about 10% of that timber. The other 90% is going to stay in the forest and rot. Now, the unfortunate part about that is that the timber, if that would have been harvested, would have resulted in tens of millions of more dollars coming to the Association of ONC counties. And so my question to the association was, what are we doing with our paid lobbyists? What are we doing to coordinate the action in Salem and with our other representatives to the U.S. Congress on changing those things, those laws that prohibited BLM from harvesting responsibly? The question I asked was, why is it that we have bureaucracies in Washington, D.C. managing our forests when here in Oregon we have the best trained foresters, the best loggers probably in the world? Anyway, that's a question that I left with the association when I left Roseburg. I'll share those hard copies with you this afternoon.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on that. Was there any votes that you took down there, or was it just mainly informational?
Well, we took a vote for a new executive director,
Or
and
which organization?
for the Association of ONC Counties. Okay, we've got a new executive director. Of course, we voted on the last meeting, which I wasn't at because I had to stay up here for that.
And who
in
was that, Mark?
In September. And so that was about it. But the main thing, the main takeaway is a problem we have with BLM, who manages our 93,000 acres of timberland in Clackamas County that is a heritage resource to the people of this county, and it's not, in my opinion, being managed properly.
And you would be right on that. I've been involved in this issue since 1987.
Gads.
Yes. I cut my political teeth in the United States Congress advocating for this and lobbying for this issue. Yes, and thank you for your work on it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
So did you make a decision on executive director?
Yes.
Oh, you can tell me later.
Okay.
Thank
yeah,
you very
yeah,
much
but
for
we
that.
did, Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a good choice.
Okay, good. Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, I was just curious, Commissioner Shull, who is the lobbyist now for ONC counties?
Oh, his name, I'll get his name to you this
'Cause
afternoon.
there was
His name
a
is-
time years ago, Gary would know better as public government affairs, but
Yeah.
the Clackamas County stepped out of being a member of the ONC counties, and a lot of it was because we didn't feel that the money that we were giving us, paying for the dues, were giving us the results that we were
That's right.
wanting in representation. It wasn't effective or collaborative, so I'm curious if it's the same. Gary, do you happen to
Okay.
know?
I don't know.
I'll get that name for you.
So, well, just some parting, since I won't be here moving forward, but I really encourage this board to look at that. And this board has a lot of power when it comes to, these are the outcomes we want to see, because we are big dues payers. That's a big
That's right.
part of their budget, is what the more populous counties pay for those dues.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fisher, since you're...
Oh, since I took the floor, yeah, thanks. Okay. Just a little update on the Metro Oversight Homeless Services Committee meeting yesterday. The Oversight Committee spent quite a bit of time looking at the annual reports of all three counties. It was really interesting to see the outcomes. Some universal threads throughout those presentations are, number one, all three counties had challenges ramping up for service delivery. It was the same challenges that we experienced in Clackamas County, other counties experienced, especially when it comes to workforce and training the workforce and just executing on how to ramp up a whole system. We in Clackamas County were really starting from probably with the least infrastructure of the three counties. And it was really amazing to hear Vahid tell the story. He did a great job. If folks have time when they're just wanting to watch a good movie, watch Vahid Brown's presentation to the Metro Oversight Committee, which is online. He told a really wonderful story of just how we executed through our local implementation plan and through COVID, and utilizing the FEMA dollars, the COVID relief dollars, the ARPA dollars to get people into transitional hotel motel services, and then utilizing, when the money came in the door for the homeless services measure, the incredible outcomes we were able to achieve at that moment because we had done all that groundwork. And I don't know if the committee was tired by the time they got to Clackamas County, because by then it was like noon and we'd been at this since 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was a very extensive, but there was just a lot of praise and appreciation for Clackamas County. I was just smiling ear to ear, even though the ex officio commissioners are not allowed to be on camera for these meetings, and we are not really allowed to talk. We are there to observe what is going on, to report back to our bodies. So some things that have come up here together issued some testimony that I think is important for this board to review moving forward in what kinds of outcomes they're looking for and what kinds of measures. Speaking just from my view, this is totally just me, just leaving you some thoughts to think about as you're moving forward. The idea that this big push of, well, you haven't even spent your money. How are you going to spend your money? You haven't spent your money. What are you going to do to spend your money? It's just the wrong approach. We need to look about what are the outcomes that we're achieving and are we being successful and how, and to really remove this idea that if Clackamas County is able to do things with less resources, it's really about the outcomes and not spending all the money. We got to look at the people at the other end of the decisions and the success that we're achieving. So please keep that focus moving forward. And Clackamas County spoke pretty heavily about what's called Built for Zero. This is really important. Built for Zero is the way we're going to measure the success of the homeless services measure, because it will keeps a database on everybody that's out there that are known to us so that we can follow up and make sure that we're making progress in housing folks. If we don't know who people are, if we aren't keeping data, we're never going to be able to measure the success. Clackamas County is an example for the rest of the region. So the tri-county planning work that needs to happen, very important that the correct data is being kept. But I was just pretty proud of Clackamas County. I have to say Washington County also has been really innovative in really expanding their shelter system. And they told one story about, I didn't even know about this, I don't know how I missed it, but there was some damage to one of their shelters, their Aurora, I can't remember the name of it, because of some weather damage. And fortunately, they had resources and reserves to deal with that emergency of getting people that were in that structure transitioned to other places and able to deal with what was happening. I think it was water damage that happened. But it just goes to the importance of approaching all of this with fiscal prudence and making sure that you just don't get over ahead of your skis. I don't have a concern that this board will do that, but it's just really important. There's a lot of pressure out there.
That's right, there is.
Out in the community. So stay steadfast. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege to be the point person on these important issues and to really dig in and be sort of in the weeds, as we always tell Commissioner Savage, you're in the weeds. Well, it has been really wonderful to be in the weeds on this issue. So that is my report for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I just got back, folks, from the Large Urban County Caucus. I'm a member of that steering committee. And the 2022 Fall Board of Directors meeting of the National Association of Counties. So what is the Large Urban County Caucus? Essentially, it's the urban counties that play a prominent role in over 160 million residents' lives every day. Our goal is to foster economic strength, build and maintain transportation systems and critical infrastructure, promote community health and well-being, champion justice and public safety, and implement a broad portfolio of federal, state, and local programs. It brings together urban county leaders from America's metropolitan counties before Congress and the administration. We also include county executives, governing board members, and other senior elected officials. We focus on urban challenges and solutions. And the interesting thing, colleagues, about our county is that we can be a member of the Large Urban County Caucus as well as the Rural Action Caucus, because we have both in our county. And I would encourage, as we move forward, and we're going to miss you, Commissioner Fisher, it would be wonderful if someone eventually would commit maybe to also being a part of the Rural Action Caucus, since our county is significantly embedded in both rural and urban issues. Essentially, I attended a number of policy briefs and policy priorities. We talked about the future of the post-pandemic economy, and actually, according to the Moody's Economist, it looks pretty good, actually. So we may be not being going into a major recession, but they're thinking that longer term, at least some of the indicators are starting to look a little better. We heard the HUD Secretary, Marcia Fudge. She addressed affordable housing crisis with her thoughts and what HUD is doing for that. And then LUC members were briefed on things like vaccinations, transportation, housing, and hunger, as the pandemic, even though we're out of the worst of it, still continues, and we still do have our duties across the nation for being the public health entities for this. So I also, just to let you know, I have brought back, as usual, a whole pile of literature to hand out and to make available to you. And as we move through our meetings before the holiday, I'll probably share some more information from those pieces. It was a great opportunity for me to meet with Michael Matthews, who is my policy person for the Community Economic Development and Workforce Committee, to map out what our strategy is for the year with our virtual meetings as we get together once a month, and also to flesh out what our priorities are going to be when we are on the Hill with Congress, not the least of which is making sure that CDBG gets its community development, gets fully funded as usual, and also to continue to work towards appropriate infrastructure, and to look and talk to specialists and colleagues across the nation about how we move people out of poverty, up the scale, so we can really see our strategies, our policies have a positive impact on what we call as economic mobility, so people can be prosperous. So that's the news from me. It was a great conference, and the next conference is going to be in mid-February, which is the legislative conference. And colleagues, again, I would ask you to think about coming. It gives us a chance to get on the Hill. It'll give us a chance to talk to some of our new representatives at the federal level, as well as work together with other colleagues across the nation who you go there and you feel like it's a breath of fresh air, because it brings you out of the immediate of what we're dealing with, and you see that other people across this country are dealing with the same kinds of issues. Not the least of which is also childcare, which is something that I have worked on, and I want to thank Ms. Fisher for all the work she has done to push that initiative forward. It keeps coming up every single time we talk about economic development and workforce. And part of the conversation we had was that the human resources folks in our organizations get that, and the business folks, the human resources people get that. We still have to get that message up to the chief executive officers, who sometimes really aren't seeing childcare as the issue it really is. So I think part of our work is going to be communicating with those businesses to make sure that those at the top know this is an issue and will continue to be an issue, not just here in Clackamas County, but also, again, every state and every county in this nation is dealing with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Well, yesterday morning, my first meeting yesterday morning was the third meeting of the Regional Tolling Advisory Committee. Pretty well a full house. We met for 2.5 hours and discussed a number of things about mitigation, talked about actually the words that are being used. And if anyone hasn't noticed here, in the last couple of weeks, ODOT has really stepped up their public outreach, and they're doing a lot of presentations. And because of that, I've been receiving a lot of phone calls and inquiries along the way, and it certainly resulted in a number of people attending this meeting, either in person or virtually. So the commenters toward the end, I'll speak a little bit more when I get there, but there's a lot of eyes on this, and because of that, I'm really talking about the words that are being used. When they talk about mitigation, mitigation isn't necessarily a solution. Mitigation sometimes a means to offset negative impacts and not really solve the problem, but maybe reduce some of the impacts. So we talked about the language, and I want to say that when it comes to tolling, I didn't say it yesterday, but I say it today, is that, the word mitigating solutions on the 205 corridor on tolling is kind of an oxymoron, because I don't think that there's a solution that can be, that's out there right now, other than not tolling it. And the impacts are pretty severe. I made the case that diversion, there's a correlation between congestion on the freeways and diversion is not going to meet the state's climate goals, for example. And there's a correlation between diversion and not meeting our climate goal impacts, because it's less efficient, there's higher CO2 output. So trying to make the case when they're talking about our rules and the process is coming, that we're going to merge the tolling work with the Oregon Highway Plan and also the Regional Transportation Plan, all of which have climate requirements, of which we're not going to meet, we're actually going to worsen. So I try to highlight that and put it on the table that we're not accomplishing those goals, so how do we move forward? The other aspect, it was, we had the gentleman from the Federal Highway Administration present. His name's Keith Lynch. And they were talking about the approval process. If there's no finding of significant impact, they nicknamed that FONSI. So finding of no significant impact, they don't foresee any. I was struck by that. They think they can mitigate around the problems, but we'll see. This is somewhat in the weeds, and as we were talking about all the goals that are interrelatable between the tolling program, the Regional Transportation Plan, and the Oregon Highway Plan, include congestion reduction, climate impacts, and safety, and revenue generation. And by the time we got towards the latter part of the agenda, it was very clear that the only one we're really going to meet is revenue generation. They'll be able to generate revenue. How much of it, I said, was important, but how much of it is actually the cost is also just as important. Where the dollar's going to go, and people should know, public wants to know, what are they buying? When we get all these tolling dollars, because when HB 2017 passed, there were 3 projects identified: Highway 217, the Rose Quarter, and I-205. And now they've added 2 more projects, and then more, apparently. We don't know. So I think it's important to identify that. Those other 2 projects are the Boone Bridge and the Interstate Bridge. And there's more beyond that. A lot of discussion on the tail end about transit. And I raised the point that for 30 years, we've been hearing about more transit, but if there's no revenue to create more transit, are we frankly mistaken in putting a lot of our solutions on transit if you have no means of coming up with the revenue to build it or to have it? So I'm not sure really that the solutions they proffer are actually pragmatic or real. So I'll have more about that as time goes. The latter part of the day yesterday was our Region 1 ODOT meeting for Region 1, and we had about eight or so people retiring or moving on to different, so there'll be at least 1/4, if not 1/3 of the membership of the Region 1 Act being new folks coming around the corner, a couple of them from Clackamas County. And that is my short report, actually, for yesterday. Chair, back to you.
Thank you very much. Last night, I had my weekly call with the tri-chairs of Washington and Multnomah County. It's always very enlightening on dealing with their problems. We all have situations and problems going forward. Mainly our discussion revolves around the homeless dollars that are being allocated to each county based on the income taxes being paid into each county. And like Commissioner Fisher said, Clackamas County does things differently in our county compared to the other 2 counties, and we're all extremely respectful of that. As I alluded to earlier, a couple weeks ago, or last week, I don't remember now, I had a call with Mayor Wheeler, Ted Wheeler of the City of Portland, with his Chief of Staff, Bobby Lee, to discuss what he wants to do with the homeless situation in Portland and how he perceives it and views it. I am glad the City of Portland is doing something, trying to do something. And he views this whole problem as a regional problem, and therefore, I'm paraphrasing here, a regional solution is needed, a regional effort combining all resources is needed. And I says, well, on some of that, I don't entirely disagree. But when it comes to the SHS dollars that Clackamas County taxpayers are paying, I believe those dollars need to stay in Clackamas County to deal with the homeless situation that has erupted really in a lot of places across the state. So, with that in mind, we agreed to keep the lines of communication open. It was good to talk with him and his new Chief of Staff, Bobby Lee. We agreed to keep talking and keeping the lines of communication open, which I do with everyone. And that's really about all I have to report for today, although I've been very busy on doing county business. Commissioners, we have a lot of work ahead of us this week on policy sessions and our evening business meetings. So please be prepared and observe the start times, and we will be very successful. Seeing no further business before this board, we are adjourned.